Jungkook is your high school bully. In order to teach him a lesson, you once sneaked into his house at night and stole his hoodie. But unfortunately, your phone slipped out of your hands and he found it. Then he started torturing you and flirting with you. He even beat up your boy best friend Ben, who tried to kiss you as a dare. He introduced himself as your boyfriend to your parents. You got sick and were unable to go to school. Then Jungkook broke into your house and found you sleeping in his hoodie. He almost tried to kiss you, but unfortunately your doorbell rang and it was Ben. Jungkook didn't like him talking to you, so he came shirtless to the front door and grabbed you by your waist and rested his head on your neck. Ben was shocked to find you guys like this. A detailed video of Jungkook flirting with you is pinned in the comment section below. Please take a look. Ryan's point of view. Ben shifted nervously in his place and looked even more uncomfortable than I did. Look, Jungkook, I'm sorry about the other night. I never would have gone near her if I knew you guys were a thing. But, I started to say, but Jungkook talked over me. Don't worry about it, I overacted. I just get a little possessive sometimes. Jungkook said with a chuckle as he wrapped his arms tightly around me. Great, I'm glad we're cool, Ben laughed. I'll see you guys at school. Have a good night, guys. Ben replied happily before heading back out of my driveway. I immediately snapped to my senses. Wait! I started to yell at Ben's retreating figure, but Jungkook slapped his hand over my mouth before I could finish my sentence. I let out a growl of frustration before darting my tongue out so I could lick the underside of his hand. It was payback for when he did that disgusting thing to me. He just chuckled and slowly removed his hand from my face. Nice try, Ryan, but it's going to take a lot more than that to gross me out, he said with a chuckle. As soon as he saw Ben start up in his car, he let out a contented sigh and immediately dropped his hands from around my waist before strolling his way back into the house. I aggressively slammed the door behind before following him into the living room. What the hell was that, Jungkook? And why would you take your top off? I blurted out in confusion as my eyes unconsciously dropped down to his chest. I think this was the first time I have ever seen him without a top on, and let me tell you, the up-close real version was not a disappointment. His muscles were ripped and I'm pretty sure he had a bloody six-pack or something. Not that I was staring long enough to count or anything. Earth to chops, Jungkook chuckled lowly as he waved his hand in front of my face to get my attention. I snapped my eyes up to meet his and I immediately looked away as I was met with his annoying expression. And to answer your question, I took my top off because it's quite hot in here, Jungkook said as he fanned himself with his hands. I arched an eyebrow in disbelief. I can quite clearly see the goosebumps on your arm. Yeah, but that's only because I was standing near the door. Okay, whatever, Jungkook. But that still doesn't explain why you heavily insinuated that we were dating to Ben. I grumbled in irritation. Well, obviously because I hate him. And I knew he would back off from you if he thought we were a thing. I took a deep breath in and out in an attempt to try and contain my anger and frustration. For the last time, Jungkook, get this through your thick head. Ben no likey me. Ryan no like Ben. Ben and Ryan are friends. I explained to him in an overly simplified baby voice. He let out a heavy sigh and moved closer to me, so close that I could see the tiniest and most intricate details of his face. It was cute and I kinda liked it. My eyes then drew to his eyes, which were shining as they slowly roamed over my face. I noticed he had the same funny expression on his face that he had when he tried to kiss me, which I assumed when we were upstairs in my room. Slowly, he reached out to cup my cheek, which caused my heart to embarrassingly jolt in surprise. Do you not realize how amazing you are? If he doesn't like you already, then it's only a matter of time before he falls to his feet. It's an incredibly easy thing to do, trust me, he said with a harsh chuckle. He was looking at me with such an intensity it was making my heart throb, and his eyes were swimming with an emotion I couldn't quite decipher. Then as suddenly as the emotion arrived, it was gone. He let go of my cheek immediately and took a large step backward, so there was a considerable amount of space between us. I'm sorry, that was... That was weird. I just need some air. He mumbled weakly before practically sprinting his way out of the room without even sparing me a second glance. I stayed frozen in place, wondering what the hell had just happened. At McDonald's. Once I had collected my order, I made my way to the seating area and tried to locate where my friends had ended up. I furrowed my eyebrows when I spotted them because they weren't sitting alone. For some reason, Jungkook and Jimin were also sat among them. What the hell were those losers doing here? Jungkook's eyes lit up upon meeting mine, and his usual self-righteous smirk spread itself out on his face. Hey chubs, healthy choice I see, Jungkook retorted sarcastically as he gestured to my tray full of McDonald's fries and nuggets. I shot him a nasty glare before slamming my tray down. Get lost, Jungkook, I grumbled bitterly. The little boy was so judgmental. We couldn't all be bothered to eat salads at every meal and spend 9 hours slaving away at the gym. Well, I assume that's what he must be doing to get a body like that. I was just about to go pull out a seat so I could start picking away at my food when I paused. There were no other seats left at the table. Gee, thanks guys. I appreciate all of you saving me a seat. I snapped sarcastically as I shot a pitiful look at my so-called friends. Relax, Chubbs, just sit on my lap, Jungkook said with a chuckle as he leaned back on his chair and patted his lap. Yeah, I think I'm going to have to pass on that one. You might be my friends now, but we ain't that close. May, you have got a small back, budge up so I can share your seat, I snapped boastfully. Firstly, if you want someone to do something nice for you, don't say they have a small back. My back is very large and shapely. Thank you very much. I heard a faint snicker fall from Jimin's mouth, but he pressed his lips together immediately when he was met with a threatening look from May. And secondly, I don't see why I have to share my seat when Jungkook has already made such a kind offer. May taunted with an evil smirk. We both knew exactly what she was doing. Just move over for God's sake, I yelled. No. Jungkook startled me half to death as I felt his hand around my waist as he pulled me onto his lap. As soon as I was seated, he let out a content and happy sigh. What is this, Jungkook? I exclaimed in shock as I desperately tried to scramble off his lap as my cheeks burned hot with embarrassment. He just chuckled and tightened his arm around my waist and pulled me even deeper into his lap. Is this how you get your kicks or something? By tormenting me? I yelled in accusation as I stumbled back against his chest in defeat. Jungkook laughed. How on earth am I tormenting you? I have been kind enough to share my seat with you, haven't I? He said with amusement lacing in his tone. That's the problem. I don't want to share your seat. I want the whole seat, I complained. Don't pretend you don't love this, he whispered softly against my ear. Come on, admit it, Ryan. You love the feel of my hands around your waist, the warmth of my chest on your back, and the vibration of my voice against your skin. You want me, he whispered against my ear, so only I could hear. If his arms weren't still around my waist, I probably would have melted into a puddle. It was pathetic, really. A couple of seconds from him shouldn't affect me in such a way, but it did. Come on, Ryan, focus. He's just trying to make fun of you. Say something mean, something sarcastic, or just laugh at him. Just do something. I desperately wanted to tell him he was wrong and to shut up, and a lot of other things, but I couldn't. I was so incredibly flustered by his words and his touch that I could barely string together a sentence. Not to interrupt whatever the hell is going on over there, but we are still all here. We heard Jimin's voice interrupt awkwardly. His words immediately brought me out of whatever hypnotization trance Jungkook had me under. I looked over at my friends in embarrassment and instantly regretted it. Chloe was winking over excessively at me, and May was wagging her eyebrows like an idiot. And that was the precise moment I wanted to die. I immediately reached for my abandoned McDonald's tray and started stress eating the chips. Do you have to chew so loudly? May snapped at Jimin, who was croaking rather loudly on his burger. Jimin just laughed and then started to chew even louder, so loud that I was concerned he might dislocate his jaw. May just watched him with narrowed eyes, with her hands clenched up in an anger fist. Once he was finished, he let out a loud burp and then blew it in her direction. "That's it, you're dead," May screamed as she launched across the table like some kind of jaguar for Jimin's neck. I watched in amusement as Jimin let out a girly scream as May started to whack him from her position, kneeling on the table. Once she was satisfied, she had inflicted enough damage, she climbed off the table and returned to her seat calmly as though nothing had happened. "You're crazy," Jimin screamed as he visibly shook from fear. "This could all be prevented if you didn't burp in my face. Just remember that," May yelled as she pointed her fork at him threateningly. He just gulped and nodded his head. "Can I have one?" I heard Jungkook's voice ask from behind me. I slowly lowered the chip I was about to eat in annoyance and adjusted myself so I was sat sideways on his lap so I could see him. "Haha, no," I snapped rudely. "Maybe if you hadn't mentioned them being so unhealthy earlier, I might be willing to share." Then I came up with a brilliant idea. I started to tease him by eating every chip slowly. These are so good, oh my god," over dramatically. He just rolled his eyes, but I could tell it was affecting him, and he still slightly after hearing some of my exaggerated and kept adjusting himself a little bit too much in his seat. I kind of felt a little bad for him. He must really want the fries. Suddenly his eyes lit up with troublesome spark, and before I could fathom a guess about what he was going to do, he snatched the end of the chip hanging out of my mouth from my lips before shoving it into his mouth. I just stared at him in shock, surprised that he would be so desperate to have a chip that he would remove it from the vicinity of my mouth. "What the hell, Jungkook? That was in my mouth," I yelled in astonishment. "It's no more disgusting than kissing someone," he said casually, his eyes momentarily darted to look at my lips as he said that. "Well, kissing is disgusting, especially the idea of kissing you. No offense or anything." I chuckled as I patted him on the shoulder sympathetically. "You sure?" he whispered huskily into my ear. I hesitated on my answer, distracted by having him this close. "Yeah, I'm sure," I stuttered. My eyes latched onto some empty chairs at the table across from us. Thank God. Sitting on his lap was doing some strange things to my body, and I didn't like it. I quickly tried to stand up, but I couldn't move as his arms were still wrapped tightly around me, preventing me from escaping. I looked back at him in confusion. "Let go of me, you idiot. Can't you see there's some free seats over there?" He just grunted in response and wrapped his arms even tighter around me and sunk his chin deeper into the crook of my neck. "You're fine here," he mumbled. I let out a heavy sigh, knowing this was going to be a long lunch with bloody Octopus hands behind me, but I couldn't help but smile because a part of me kind of liked sitting on his lap, and that scared me. It was Thursday afternoon, and I was sat on the hood of Jungkook's car in the school parking lot. We were supposed to have another tutoring session, so I was patiently waiting for his class to finish. I have to admit, over the few weeks, we had been doing less and less work at the study session. I was just using it as an excuse to hang out with him, if I was being entirely honest. At his house, Jungkook unlocked the door to his house, gesturing for me to go ahead of him. I made my way into his house and headed straight for his kitchen, feeling comfortable enough to just help myself. He followed behind me and started laughing when he saw me immediately shove my hand into a packet of cookies. "Don't be shy, help yourself to something to eat," he said sarcastically, his eyes shining in amusement. I just ignored his comment and turned to look at him. "Why do you always insist we study at your house?" He paused for a bit, his face contorting slightly in embarrassment. "Because your dad scares me," he mumbled. I started laughing hard, incredibly amused that Jungkook of all people was terrified of my dad. "What? Can you blame me? He's literally a police investigator. If I make one wrong move, he'll probably have me arrested. Jungkook said, trying to defend himself. He only pretends to act tough. He's really a big baby. Yeah, maybe to you. I'm not sure he feels the same way about the guy who guys who hang out with his daughter, he said with a scoff. I flopped down onto the sofa with a sigh and glanced at my back, contemplating whether I should bother to do any work. Luckily, that's when Dylan, Jungkook's little brother, came bouncing into the room. His face stretched out into a cute little grin upon seeing me. "Wyan?" he screamed as he came running over to me. He launched himself onto my lap and wrapped his tiny little arms around me for a hug. "It's good to see you, Jill," I said with a laugh. "Dylan, how many times did I have to tell you to wait for me before running off?" a woman said as she entered the living room. I instantly recognized her as Jungkook's mom from seeing her around at school events and socials. She paused upon seeing me, clearly not expecting to find a random girl sitting on her sofa. "Sorry, Mummy, I should have waited for you," Dylan said, looking down in guilt. Jungkook then walked into the living room. "Oh, hey Mom, I didn't realize you were coming home early today," Jungkook said in surprise. "Yeah, my client cancelled," she said with a heavy sigh. "Anyway, what's going on here?" she said, gesturing between us. Jungkook looked over at me with a smirk, his eyes sparkling with mischievousness. "Oh right, this is Wyan. She's my girlfriend," he said with a proud smile, subtly shooting me a slight wink. My eyes widened to an incredible degree as soon as the word girlfriend fell out of his mouth. "I'm his girl, what now?" "Really? You have a girlfriend?" she asked in surprise, as though the idea of Jungkook dating was a deadly shock to her. "I'm not. We're not. Jungkook is a liar," I stuttered out nervously, barely able to form a sentence. Jungkook smiled before bursting out into laughter. "I'm kidding, Mom. It's Wyan. You know, the one who used to hate my guts, Wyan. She came over to study," Jungkook said with a chuckle. "Wait, is that Wyan? Like Wyan? She said, scanning me up and down like I was some kind of alien. I had no idea why she was looking at me like that. "Maybe," he mumbled quietly, looking slightly embarrassed for some reason. For more videos, please subscribe this channel. Have a great day, dear ones. Bye.